How's it going, everybody? It's another Thursday here. We are back live with the LUMIX live streams, and hopefully this week we've got the audio and some of the video glitches we were dealing with last week figured out. Um, Luckily, those issues last week were actually on my end, not necessarily my internet provider 100%. But today is actually a really exciting Lumix live stream for us. This is the first in the series that we are looking to expand on here of our community spotlights. So what does this basically mean, right? So now that we've gone through close to about a year's worth of these Lumix live streams covering varying different topics and usually talking to some of the similar people that you've grown accustomed to seeing on this platform, we've wanted to take a step out and actually use this platform as a way to recognize you, the community. So through different avenues, which we're still working on the actual finalizing details of, how we're going to collect this information. Awesome. Thanks for the update there in the chat. So we're still working on some of the details on how we're actually going to go through a process where you guys can have an option or a chance to get featured on one of these Lumix live streams, which will come soon. Hopefully, once we can get some more of those details figured out. But the goal is to use this as also a platform to give back to the community, more than just the knowledge that myself and some of the others in the company and our guests can share with you, but also to reemphasize that whole concept that I kind of had when we first started this platform, is that it's a community of all of us. We all come from such vastly different experiences in the photography and videography world. And there are some amazing things that you all are doing out there. I think that would be really cool to talk about and explore and give people an opportunity to, tell your story, show your images, show your video work, that kind of thing. So this particular stream came about by through some of the social media postings that we had seen from Steven, who is in the chat there, Steven Madow. With some of the work that he had been doing with the Lumix cameras, photographing some rocket launches. And it really caught our eye, some of these beautiful images. And, we wanted to reach out and kind of kick this off. So the little bit of a difference here is that this is a partially recorded. We recorded the interview with Steven prior to today's session. I wanted to make sure that we were able to get that 100% clean. As clean as you can always get some interviews and things like that, so that you guys could actually see this information and I could better get the images into this stream so you guys can really see the work that he does and add some links and stuff like that. So when we're talking about something, you've got references. So that's kind of the goal for today. So a little bit different than our normal streams. But again, if this is something that you guys are really interested in and you want a chance to be featured, let us know in the comments if this is a platform you want to see more of. And we'll work on getting a more streamlined platform to get you guys, submissions to get a spot on Lumix Live. Some of the, kind of other housekeeping here. If this is your first Lumix Live, welcome. These are, as I was saying before, these are our weekly streams that we do, highlighting everything from ultra deep dive into technical features and specs and concepts into more inspirational work, talking to photographers, videographers, that kind of thing. We also use this as a great way to get feedback from you guys. So everything that you guys drop down in the chat, whether it's a request for future features or, questions about what's coming, that kind of thing, though we can't always answer a lot of questions when it comes to what's coming, like the first question about an update on Micro Four Thirds. Unfortunately, I don't have one for you during these streams, but this is a platform that we use to share a lot of that kind of information out when we have it available. If you have questions during this stream, in this case, now that we've got Steven here in the chat with us, you have a couple of options. If it's a question specifically for Steve, make sure to, or Steven, sorry. I'm not sure if you go by Steve or Steven, but I'm just going to say Steven, so sorry. If you have a question specifically for Steven, make sure to tag at Steven Madow. It should auto-populate, and this way he can see it on his side. If it's a question for Lumix cameras or just a general question at all, tag at Lumix cameras before the question, and that'll pop up on my screen here so that I can address it and get to it. The next thing I wanted to cover here is, we've talked about it every single week so far, but we have the Lumix Pro Services system here in the US and in many other regions across the globe. In the United States, we have two tiers. We have the Red and the Platinum tier. The Red tier is the free membership that you see on the screen here. You get a membership kit in the mail with an ID card and things like that. And what this gives you is your 3-year warranty registration. So we've simplified that process for those that have been with us while we're doing 3-year warranty. It also gets you repair tracking, all of that kind of stuff that kind of really keeps things in line and keeps you up to date with what's going on with Panasonic Lumix. Our premium tier, which is our platinum tier, that is the more Pro Series tier. So that is a paid service tier. This one is what will get you faster turnaround times. You get your sensor cleanings and camera cleanings, firmware updates, all of that kind of fun stuff that you'd expect in a paid service tier, as well as you get a really cool welcome kit that's got some cool added pieces there for your shooting experiences, and I'll roll that slide up there again. So if you're in the US, you can use that QR code, get yourself registered on it. If you own Lumix cameras, definitely at least get on the Red tier. This way you've got yourself that 3-year warranty, everything's set. If you're on the Platinum tier, definitely take a look at it. All of the qualifications to get into these two programs have been on promotion recently, at least in the US. So check the links and see if it's a fit for your style. Now, we're going to jump into the interview here that was recorded with Steven in a moment. Yeah, as a reminder again, if you guys have questions, just tag at Lumix Cameras or tag at Steven Madow, and we'll be able to address them throughout the stream. Yeah, that should be it. Let's roll the interview. Thank you, Steven, for joining me on this first of our community spotlight on the Lumix Live sessions. One of the first things I like to do with every guest that we bring onto this platform is if you could give us a little bit of a background as to like who you are, what got you into photography, videography, and kind of get some info that others might relate to.
Cool. Sounds great. Thanks for having me on. I'm Steven Madow. I'm based here in Orlando, Florida, conveniently just a few minutes away from where all of the rocket launches are taking off, or at least most of them. But I've been into photography now for, I don't know, probably 10, 15 years, something like that, but always very interested in media and producing media in general. So from a video standpoint, whenever I travel, I'll produce these like 5-minute fast-paced videos that have been evolving in quality over the past 15 years or so, which has been really fun. So that's really been kind of how I got started from a video side. And then buying some of these video devices got me into photography, ironically. So when I wound up with a drone, I realized, well, I don't just need to shoot video, and maybe not just on vacation while I'm flying around in the air. I can also start taking stills. And that also brought me into Panasonic video cameras so much, or at least mirrorless, bodies to be able to get into video production as well, which has been great. And really, when I bought my first Panasonic camera, I was looking to do one of the things that's now become so critical within my photography career, which is to take a long exposure rocket launch photo. So I realized I needed proper equipment to be able to throw the camera into bulb mode and to be able to actually expose for 200 seconds and get what I was going for. So that kind of influenced my way into photography, because I wanted to try to take that kind of shot and influenced the camera choices that I got into.
Very cool. Very cool. So, I obviously with everything, all the different styles of photography that we've covered here on Lumix Live, and I know a lot of our viewers have different experiences in, I think, your particular style that caught our eye with the rocket launches is one of those things that a lot of people I don't think have experienced or have an ease of access to experience. So what got you into, deciding to photograph and video those particular types of events?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, when I was in college, I was pretty interested in rocket launches, but a few times I was just hanging out outside at night and saw that, I looked out and like a rocket was going through the sky. Like, unless there's people on them, they don't really get that much press ahead of time. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I've got to learn more about this. So I started to, track the schedules and figure out where they were. So a lot of it was from, just being a general member of the public and thinking, wow, that's really cool that these are happening all the time. And then that kind of led me to, well, I've seen a bunch of these. Now I want to start taking really cool pictures of them too.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because they're visible from, easily 100 miles away. So to do a lot of rocket launch photography, you don't even need any sort of special access. You can just kind of, grab some camera gear and get started. Some of my favorite shots are completely from public areas and without any access.
That's cool. So when it does come to the point of some of the shots, like there's the one shot I think you have of the Merlin engines firing.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, for a shot like that, what kind of goes into the process of planning to do a shot like that? I mean, as someone who's never photographed any of it before, I can, use my mind to guess, but I know a lot of people would be curious what goes into your planning for something like that.
Yeah, so that one was really cool. That was from my first time that I was able to set up what are called remote cameras at a rocket launch. So really quickly into that, what a remote camera is it's a camera that's sitting out on the launch pad for sometimes days at a time through 95 degrees in Florida, thunderstorms and all of that. And then that camera has to come to life at the exact right moment. So what I use are these MYOP sound triggers. So essentially they wait for a really loud sound. They then wake up my camera, and I use different burst modes depending on what I'm trying to do. And they just start shooting like crazy. So I'll get like 150 frames, and then I'm able to pick the one that makes sense. But exposures are really tough, especially my first time doing it, figuring out like, that is a really bright thing. So exposure settings are so critical. And I've got some friends, this really great group of friends that are in similar stages of getting into being able to have cameras out on launch pads. So we'll collaborate a little bit to figure that out. But honestly, a lot of what I do is I'll like scour the internet and go through Flickr and all of these other sources and download images and look at their EXIF data just to get like some sort of baseline EXIF that I can use to at least get a starting point. Luckily the cameras have great dynamic range, so I'm able to, be off by a little bit in those exposure settings and still more or less get what I want in post. So that works out pretty well too.
Nice. And kind of segueing on that. So when you're out, kind of capturing these images, I imagine that you're shooting in RAW as opposed to JPEG, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
And with these kind of shots, for those that don't know, we'll be throwing some of these images up so you guys can see what we're talking about. But when getting the camera into that kind of remote location, how do you go about the selection of like what lens you want to use? Because obviously it's not something you can quickly go change. It's got to be planned.
Yeah, so I do most of my lens selection ahead of time. And now when I go and shoot remotes, I'll set up 4 cameras. So I'm sitting there plotting out what do I want each of these cameras to do. And I'm very meticulous about it. So I'll list out, here's all of the EXIF settings that I want to use, and here's the camera and lens combo for this. So when I'm setting up 4, I tend to do 2 very different kinds of shots. I'll do wide shots, and not super wide. Like I don't have to pull out my my 8mm 8-16 Panasonic Leica lens, or 8-18, whatever that goes to. Normally I'm using my 12-60s, which are awesome to go put out there. They do great like during thunderstorms, like I know that they're going to be fine and that that's not really going to be a problem for them. So that's pretty cool. But those are like generally at that 12 to 25 millimeters. It about 500 or 700 feet away where my cameras are, like that's going to be the wide shot that I want. When I get out there, then I have to think through composition. So then I've got to see, okay, what do I have access to? Can I throw a palm tree in this frame? Do I want to maybe show the other remote cameras in the frame? I've done that before, and I'm like, I think remote cameras are so cool. So let's show them all watching the launch. And then sometimes I'll bring longer lenses out there. So if I want like really close up on the rocket engines, I'll throw like 50 to 200 or even I've had the 100 to 400 out there before, and that gets pretty close in.
Well, cool. So with being this close, because you said like how far away are the cameras typically from a launch pad in their remote area?
And they can be as close as 500 feet. So they get pretty darn close in there.
Yeah, that's definitely close. I mean, what kind of risks do you see, putting a camera out into that, or is it very well? I mean, obviously it's very well controlled. It's a rocket launch. You would imagine that they'd be very well controlled. For any kind of potential, damage to the cameras, or is everything kind of funneled away from those areas?
Yeah, so it depends on the launch. For some launches, and like with the SpaceX rockets, they're really just letting out water vapor, and where they have us set up, the cameras are pretty well protected. I do stake down my tripods though to make sure that they don't get blown over either by a thunderstorm or by the rocket itself. But there was as I step on one of my dog toys here and make it speak. But yeah, so there was a launch a few months ago that I did. It was an Atlas V rocket, so a ULA rocket, and they pretty much let us set up wherever we wanted to. So I decided to set up in like right in this area that they refer to as the flame trench. So pretty much realized I'm not sure what's going to happen with this lens. I was really worried about it, and with the camera gear, so I didn't really know how everything was going to go. And this was the closest my camera's ever been. So I actually build these giant enclosures for the cameras to help protect them, but the front element still has to be out there. So I do have one lens that I thought that just got covered and like had debris hit the front element. But I brought it to a camera repair place, and they told me, no, the front element actually performed great. It like none of the debris damaged it. But it got so hot from the fire of the rocket that part of the front element and part of the coating actually melted down. So that lens is not in great condition now, but I was super happy with the picture. Like everything performed fine to get the picture. And it wasn't until after the rocket flame made it through. And the camera body did great too. So like I'm really impressed with how that stuff all held together.
That's really cool. Well, hey, it basically just a really solid one-off trophy from something like this.
Right, exactly. So now it's in my bookshelf where I keep a lot of my camera gear, but it's kind of a fun memento that I get to keep.
Nice. So those boxes or the protections that you were saying that you build up for it, is that something that's like, kind of commonly done with other photographers in this area, or is this something you've taken that step to go, one further?
Yeah, so it's commonly done, and there's a huge range of it. So there are people who are engineers out there who will build systems that have like fans and they're battery operated and all of this really cool stuff. For mine, and actually I can go grab one of mine right now.
Sure.
It'll take a couple of seconds, but so here's one of them that I built. So pretty much just like a plastic case that I have. And then I've got some reflectics on the sides of it. This is really to make sure that stuff doesn't overheat. If it's 100 degrees out already and a black camera is sitting in the sun, I expect that the camera is going to do really well. But also it's got to be able to wake up on a moment's notice. So I try to control the heat as much as possible. It's kind of funny looking at this pretty close up. I can actually see some soot from some rocket launches. So actual rocket stuff. I'll have to wash my hands after this. It's so acidic that it actually stings your hands after you use it. But I'll pretty much build on the bottom these. So that's like a Manfrotto tripod adapter. So I can throw it onto a tripod and then a tripod adapter in here. So I throw my L bracket on there, close up the camera after I set it up, and then it's good to go.
Hey, that's some pretty sick engineering there. I mean, you know, there's so many cool things that go into this stuff that obviously people in the chat and those that are joining us, you know, thinking of doing these kinds of styles of photography, you really don't recognize all of the extra steps that you really want to take to get it, you know, as safe as possible. And I think that's one of the cool things, you know, because you'd mentioned like with the temperatures that, you know, you're going to experience in this kind of scenario. One of the things I know that we've been big with pushing as far as a brand goes is that, you know, thermal reliability. Now, this is very clearly going to push the bounds of any camera that's put there. I'm pretty sure no camera brand ever does testing to make sure that, like, you know, the blast from a rocket is going to be okay for it. But how have the cameras performed for you, you know, across the board? Because obviously these are subject to multiple instances of this over time.
Yeah, so I mean, they've been overall like so fantastic. So again, being able to keep them out there for 4 days at a time through rainstorms, like I know, and I think the first time that I got, like when I got my Panasonic like 100 to 400 with a GH5, I'm like, well, I've read that it's weather sealed, but like I want to be able to trust it. And there was a giant rainstorm that day, so I just like walked outside and just started shooting like it wasn't raining at all, and that gave me a lot of trust level in them. But I know that like the rain's not going to mess with them. I know that they're not going to overheat and have problems with that. It doesn't get terribly cold here, but like I've had cameras sitting out for again 4 or 5 days before, and like the batteries will just keep going. Like when I get back to that camera through its sleep modes, I'll be at 4 out of 4 bars. It's my other devices, my sound triggers, that I'm more worried about if they're gonna still be alive at that point. But yeah, I mean they've done awesome. The only time that I've ruined one out there was when it was in direct blast from a rocket flame, which is a little bit hotter than, you know, than a normal day, even here in Florida.
Yeah. I mean, most of our Pro series cameras, so like our GH5, the S series, the full frame cameras now, a lot of them, you know, we do rating to like 104, I think it's 140 degrees Celsius. Yeah. So, you know, that's definitely hot, but nowhere near this hot.
Right. Pushing them a little bit beyond human limits. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's one of the cool things that I've seen from, you know, some of your work and some of the other people's work that, you know, we're looking at to continue this kind of spotlight idea, is that there's so many applications that people like yourself put these kinds of cameras into that, you know, an engineer working in our lab to develop these cameras would not particularly ever think about, you know, how are they 100% going to work in this particular environment? Right. So, how, going back, you know, kind of out of that the close-up area, when you're further away, because there's a couple other shots that I've seen, like the one that we're using is like the header for this stream with the, I think it was a stadium shot with the rocket trail going over it.
Yeah.
When working on shots like that, like what kind of planning do you have to do to figure out, like, okay, where is the rocket going to be in the sky? What's the path for it? Is there tools that can help other people figure that out?
Yeah, so when I planned that specific shot, there weren't really any tools available. So that was kind of, I knew where east was, and I knew that exactly east is where the rocket was going to take off from, but I didn't really know where the trajectory was going to go. Was it going to go left? Was it going to go just straight forward, which I've had happen before, which doesn't really look great. I'd rather get that nice arc. But there's this guy, I think he's an Irish guy who lives in Mexico now, who's built this thing called flightclub.io. which is built for this incredibly niche area of nighttime rocket launch streak photography. And he takes in all of this data from the different live streams and wherever else he can get data from. And you can actually put in, so I'll put in, I've got my 4/3 sensor, I'm using a 12 to 60, and I'm at this location, and it will show me exactly what that trajectory will look like going through my frame. So it's an amazing tool for being able to plan these out.
That's pretty sick. Yeah, we'll definitely have to link out to that, because that's again one of the kind of cool things is like we want to encourage as many people as we can to try these kinds of styles of photography. Obviously, with any topic of photography, for those watching, you want to make sure that you follow all of the safety guidelines that are involved with this. It's not something that an average person's going to be able to jump up and be like, hey, I want to go throw a camera on a remote pad somewhere. I'm willing to bet that took a lot of time on your part, right, Steven, to get into that kind of access.
Yeah, and some convincing of a few people to let me put some cameras out there.
Yeah. But, there's so many, opportunities, like you were saying, for anyone that's around these areas. I'm in Austin, so Houston's relatively close. And I know I believe they're testing a lot of the new, I can't even remember the name of it, the new SpaceX.
The Starship down in Boca Chica.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities where, people could go and observe, just like they did in the 60s when, we would be watching, like you or I were there in the 60s, but experience this stuff, because we were saying before how there are so many more, or it appears that there are so many more launches happening, over the last really over the last year, unless that's really just us paying closer attention to these things.
So they've really increased the amount of launches. And it's so funny that you said the 60s, because I think that I had read last year was the most active year for Cape Canaveral launches since the 60s, since there were insane amount of tests going on. So it's really increasing, especially SpaceX is launching this massive constellation of satellites to provide internet. And they want to get as many of these up there as quickly as they can. So nothing's stopping them. It's crazy.
Yeah. So going into this, just because people can't necessarily get into the areas where you are, there's still such an amazing opportunity to practice a lot of the disciplines that, let's face it, all of us, no matter what level of photography you're in, no matter what discipline you traditionally practice, wedding, portrait, event, whatever, something like this is one of those really cool, challenging things to press your capabilities at. And I think seeing the work that you've shared publicly on this is hopefully going to give some inspiration to people who have the opportunity for it. Because even when I was in New Jersey, there were opportunities I know where we'd get bulletins that said, hey, at this time of night, look southeast and you'll be able to see the trail from one of the SpaceX rockets flying. Yeah. When you go into, obviously we've talked about all the shooting side of it and the setup and all that kind of stuff, but when you go into actually editing and kind of culling all the photos that you have, what kind of process do you go through for the actual selection of which images you want to use? Are there certain criteria you follow?
Yeah, so in general, I'll start off, if I have time when I'm on the pad, I'll frantically click to view mode and start using the wheel to go through and see if it actually got what I was looking for. But then once I get them into Lightroom, I kind of just will quickly tap through them, maybe apply some basic settings. Because again, sometimes the exposure is a little bit off, so I want to make sure that I can correct it and bring back what I need to. And then I'll generally just copy those exposures or those correction settings and paste them over the entire row of photos, so over the 100 photos. And then that gives me a good idea of where they can turn out. And I'll start looking for I don't know, either something that might be interesting compositionally, I might be looking for the fire looking really cool in some of these shots, and just really, thinking about what can I pull through in post. I've even now started to mess with bracketing out on the pad. So if I'm doing like a nighttime one, you get fire that's brighter than the sun, and then you have really dark scenery around it. So being able to really pull out those details. So I'll generally just try to apply it and then pick, right? Like of 100 shots, there's going to be 5 that look pretty darn similar. And at some point, you just have to make a choice and be like, yep, that's the one.
One of the fun parts about editing is you always end up overthinking, I think, a lot of times.
Yep.
Is this really where I want it? Do I want that maybe like a millimeter higher or lower? Now, with all the images that you create, do you like what do you end up doing with them? I know obviously you share them on Instagram, but I know you also have a website. So how do you use the images after you've captured them?
Yeah, so a few different things. So pretty much with everything, I'll share them out on social media. That's like my first thing that I'll do because I'm really excited about the picture and the launch is really exciting. So I want to share that out with people. But I also throw them on my website and people buy prints of them, which is pretty cool. I did. I got a picture of a rocket launching behind a Disney cruise ship that was stuck in port because of the pandemic that's going on right now. And that went viral through so many places. And I was able to do a limited run and sell out that entire run within like 24 hours, which is crazy. So really good audience on that one. But I love being able to sell prints and have them in people's houses. My house is full of my own prints. And so like metal is really cool, especially for the sort of stuff that I do. I love having them on metal just because they're like so bright and vibrant, and that kind of works really well with my style. But I mean, I even love the act of like printing things in general. Like to me, it's very fun to go and to get things into this sort of tactile nature through the actual printer. And I love being able to like hold that print of the image. And then the final thing, to be really long-winded with that response, I also license a lot of my photos out. So I work with a lot of the tourism boards and other groups here in the Orlando area to license photos, which sometimes can help bring people into the area and help just educate more people about the fact that all of these launches are going on. So to me, it's this full circle that I really enjoy.
That's really cool. So, taking something that you have a passion for, clearly with the amount of effort you're putting into this and the beautiful imagery you're creating, being able to actually have that turn into something that, most people, I would argue, in this industry, unless you're working in the kind of traditional sense of the photographer or videographer, it's relatively hard to make either a living or even make any money on it. So it's really cool to see someone actually, succeeding in this kind of market. What is your website? We're going to link it in the description, but I want to definitely let people know where to find these your photographs, because like you said, having physical prints of something is such an amazing thing. I mean, I'm kind of the same. I got my photographs, my wife's photographs up on the wall. It's such a viscerally awesome experience.
Yeah, so the website is stevenmadow.com. If you need help with spelling, probably in the link down below. And that's the same as my Instagram as well, just at Steven Madow. So fortunately, I'm the only person with my name, so it makes it easy to get those usernames and those domain names.
Nice. So, yeah, this is just such a cool idea. The style of photography you've got, the images that you've created. I want to basically wrap this up and kind of, I guess, just see what other kinds of photography or styles do you typically do, or is the rocket launch is kind of your primary?
So rocket launches, I've been doing rocket launches for a while. They used to be a smaller subset of what I do. And now they've kind of become a bigger part of it as I've gotten more access and just like gotten much more heavily into it. But I love doing landscapes and cityscapes as well. That one is a client shot that I did of a building in downtown Orlando. So cityscapes are a lot of fun for me. And I like photography that takes a lot of planning. So things like moonshots. If I can line the moon up with something and pull out like the 100 to 400 and shoot at 400 and make the moon look enormous, not through Photoshop, but through compression. That's a ton of fun. And I went out to like an eclipse in Oregon a few years ago and scripted my cameras through computer software to take 300 exposures, pre-planned exposures within 2 minutes. So if I'm able to bring in like the nerdy and the planning side to it and pull off a shot that I really love, like those are the most rewarding to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, are there any really cool projects that you wanna give a shout out to that you're working on, or anything really cool you want people to kind of keep an eye out for coming up?
So no real specific projects. I think what I'm most looking forward to this year in photography is continuing to get out to launch pads, keep getting my cameras out there, and trying to just push that and figure out more and more stuff that I can do out there, and to kind of keep creating there. And you're in a very specific small area, so finding creativity amongst 100 cameras that are set up in the same area can sometimes be a challenge. So I want to kind of keep pushing those boundaries.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I want to thank you so much, Steven, for taking the time and joining me for this kind of launch of our, no pun intended, of our community spotlights on Lumix Live. I really look forward to seeing more of the work that you have, and I hope everyone in the chat that's watching heads over and takes a look at all of your work, because it's stunning work that you've created, and beautiful imagery that really shows how flexible and how diverse photography and videography can be in the industry.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for having me on the show. This was a blast. Another pun. And really had a great time, and love being able to be involved with this Lumix community.
Awesome. So yeah, that was the interview with Steven, who's down in the chat. So there's obviously this is a bit of a shorter session than we normally do for these streams, being the first of this style that we're going to launch, but we're going to continue this going a little bit. I wanted to actually address some questions, give more time for everybody to actually get your questions asked. I see, this is awesome having Steven in the chat with us, being able to address what you guys are asking. And as a reminder, this kind of platform, if you guys enjoyed this, I know obviously this is a very, kind of specific style of photography and topic, so it may not 100% relate to your particular style, but these are all meant to just, kind of show us all these different kinds of experiences, and hopefully you can take something from what we show or talk, even if it's just inspiration, might not be anything technical, that could apply to your particular type of photography. So as a reminder, if you have questions specifically for Lumix cameras, or if you guys have questions for Steven, as most of you guys are all doing in there, you tag either of us in the question and we can address it. So let me take a look here. I was reading through the questions while we were playing that part. So it looks pretty good on questions for this side, at least. Again, if you guys have questions, keep them going. We're going to run this stream for a little bit longer, so that we can keep this going here. Let's hear. Charbax, hey, how are you doing, man? It says, I can't get Lumix webcam software to work on a M1 MacBook Air. Not sure if because my G9 is on 1.2. So as far as I know right now, the Lumix webcam and the Tether software have not been validated on the M1 MacBooks yet. I know that they have, what is it called, like the Rosetta thing or whatever, which is supposed to bring compatibility with other, the standard Intel-based versions. So I'm not sure if there may be some situations there. So we'll definitely check on it. It's probably just that the program needs an update, which if I had a date on when the updates come out, I would share it, but I don't. So that's probably what's causing it with the M1 there. New technology like that, especially new processing platforms, can have some growing pains with it. If we all remember the move from PowerPC to Intel, this is already doing a lot better than that, but still growing pains. So one of the things I wanted to, while you guys are free to still drop your questions in there for Steven, I wanted to actually just kind of show some of the equipment that Steven mentioned. For those that may not know exactly which lens or combination he was talking about before, but we have the 8-18, which is that really nice ultra wide angle lens, and I just have to take the tape off mine because I use it in a situation where I don't want anything moving. But so we've got our 8-18, the ultra wide 2.8 to f4. It's our Leica co-branded and co-designed lens, so you're getting that beautiful color rendition out of it. You get a nice ultra wide angle lens for your Micro Four Thirds cameras, and it's balanced incredibly well for pretty much whatever platform you want to throw it on there. And then he also mentioned use with like GH5s, G9s, some of the different cameras that we have there. And then we have our 50-200 attached to this, which if you haven't looked at this lens and you're looking for something that's more telephoto but don't necessarily want to jump into, say, like the 100-400, this could be a really good choice for you, because in addition to being 50-200 millimeter, so 100 to 400 millimeter, 35 millimeter field of view, this also accepts the teleconverters for our Micro Four Thirds system. So you are able to throw a 2x converter on this and have fairly similar to the performance, aperture, and the same field of view as a 100-400. And I think it comes out maybe a little bit cheaper or a little bit less expensive than the dedicated 100-400. So this could be a nice little option too. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. But yeah, so this was one of the lenses that Steven had mentioned during the stream as well. And then, obviously, I don't have a 100-400 here with me, actually, at the moment. But what I do have is one that I don't think we mentioned in this, but for those that love ultra-long telephoto lenses or relatively long telephoto lenses with fixed focal length and fast aperture, we do also have that 200 millimeter 2.8, which also is able to take our teleconverters, so you can have up to a 400 millimeter field of view with a 2x converter on it. So it gives you a really solid kit for some long telephoto shooting there. So let's see, what other questions do we have in here? So we're going to actually kind of round this session out. Like I said, this is a little bit of a shorter session, being the first of our LUMIX community spotlight. I keep calling it creator spotlight because I think that was the original idea we wanted to call it, but community spotlight seems to work. If you feel really strong one way or another on the title of this series, feel free to drop us a line down in the chat or send us an email over at lumixlive@us.panasonic.com, and we'll continue all that kind of stuff. So again, I want to thank Steven for taking the time to actually join me earlier this week for the actual interview portion of this stream, and being awesome to be in the chat with us, answering your guys' questions. Definitely go check out his Instagram page. Go check out his website. He does, as was asked in the chat before, he does sell prints, as we talked about in the interview. So if you're someone like me that loves to have, pictures actually hanging in your home or apartment or whatever, grab yourself some cool looking images. Aside from that, I want to just remind everybody again, like I said in the beginning, with the LUMIX Pro services, we have the two tiers, the red tier as well as the platinum tier here in the United States. That gives you the different levels for connectivity, or not connectivity, I'm reading a chat and answering it in my head. Gives you the different tiers of service levels, red being the free tier, which gets you your 3-year warranty, all of the online service requests, all of that kind of fun stuff is just done through a single platform. And then the platinum tier for the more hardcore users, more professional level users, even, well, really just anybody can use it. But that's a paid service. It gets you the welcome kit, which has got a really, really cool Peak Design customized strap in there with it. You get your sensor and EVF cleanings, lens calibrations, firmware updates, all of that kind of fun stuff, and discounts off out of warranty repairs. So kind of the typical things you expect when you're in a higher tier service program there. So yeah, with that, again, thank you everybody for joining us this week. If you guys have continued questions, make sure to drop them in the chat, drop them in the comments after this video is posted online. We do monitor the comments that come in even after the videos are posted. And as a reminder, these do go right back up into the Lumix Live playlist on the Lumix Cameras channel that you're on. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all the fun stuff so that you guys don't miss next week's or any of our Lumix Live streams that we have running and any future events that we have that would be used on this platform. So with that, again, thanks everybody. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care.